This is Alexandra. She is 25 years old. She lives in Kharkiv, Ukraine. And today she actually spoke to the BBC about her mother. Her mother actually lives in Moscow, Russia. And she was telling the BBC that her own mother did not believe her when she said that her city in Kharkiv, Ukraine, was being shelled by Russian forces. She said, "I didn't want to scare my parents, but I started telling them directly that civilians and children are dying." And her parents, to her surprise, responded by saying that the Russian army would never target civilians, that it's Ukrainians who are killing their own people. And to her shock, Alexandra says that her mother just repeated the narrative of what she heard on Russian state TV. Russian state media, of course, has sought to obscure the reality of what is happening in Ukraine. There are no reports of missiles hitting residential districts. There is no coverage of Russian casualties or the ongoing protests that are taking place inside of Russia. In fact, yesterday, Russia's last independent radio station, Echo Moscow, was shut down, and Russia's last independent TV station, TV Rain, broadcast its final news update. And this morning, Russia blocked the sites of Russian-language Western media like Radio Free Europe, Voice of America, Deutsche Welle, and, of course, the BBC. All while the audience for the BBC's Russian-language news site alone reached 10.7 million people last week alone, more than triple its usual average. Now, today, Russia went even further, blocking access to both Facebook and Twitter. And this morning, the Russian Duma, their parliament, made it illegal and punishable by 15 years in prison to report anything the Russian government deems to be false information about the war in Ukraine. Oh, by the way, Russia doesn't call it a war, and neither can the reporters there. They are calling it a special military operation. So all of the news that you see coming out of Russia has to come from the government itself. The BBC announced today that this law basically left them no other option than to temporarily suspend the work of BBC News journalists and their support staff within the Russian Federation. Other outlets started following suit. So while we have had footage to show of some of the more than 8,000 anti-war protesters that have been arrested in Russia, that kind of reporting, that kind of journalism just became a lot more risky. In fact, it is now punishable. And this crackdown comes as imprisoned Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny is calling for more mass protests inside Russia and around the world this coming Sunday. Today, 4 major Russian independent news outlets, including the Novaya Gazeta, the newspaper whose editor just won the Nobel Peace Prize last year, decided that this new law actually made it impossible for them to report on the war truthfully without their reporters being thrown in prison. So now they aren't reporting on it at all. The independent news site Meduza was also blocked by the Russian government today, but they have experience working around the Russian government because Meduza has always reported on Russia in Russian, but they have done it from Latvia, outside of Russia's borders, to stay as independent as possible. So even though their site was blocked inside of Russia, they have not stopped reporting.